We're now wanting people to install a technology that is never going to be affordable. We're here to explain more is Rupert Darwall, the author of Green Tyranny. Hi, Rupert. How are you doing?
Great to be joining you, Alex.
Great to have you on. You know, I've never really understood what a heat pump blimmin' is. I've never come across one. I've never seen one. I've never touched one, smelt one, seen if it works, whether it heats the home. Someone messaged me the other week saying, actually, if the temperature drops below a certain point, that thing's worthless anyway. And now we're going to learn that they're basically unaffordable. Tell us more.
Yeah, the physics of heat pumps are actually quite elegant in a way because it works on the physics of a differential temperature between outside and inside, and the pump is actually pumping that differential, if you like, from the cold to the warm, and that's how it releases heat that way. The problem with it, Alex, is it runs on electricity, and electricity is a lot more expensive than gas. To give you an idea, to pump gas, pumping methane molecules is about 1/10 of the cost of pumping energy as electrons through the grid. The grid is really, really expensive, and to bulk up the grid for net zero is going to cost billions and billions of pounds, and of course we're on the hook for that. So that's why this will never work in terms of lowering people's energy bills.
Where does the electricity itself come from? You know, before it even gets to the grid, being pumped around as electrons rather than methane gas, because surely a lot of the electricity itself comes from fossil fuels still.
Well, that's all. You're absolutely right there. When you said in the intro about the sun not shining, the wind not blowing, that is the fundamental problem with intermittent weather-dependent renewables. It doesn't produce the energy the electricity when you want it. It depends on the weather. So when the weather's not right, of course you have to have backup, and that backup comes in the form of fossil fuels. And if you remember, Alex, the last Conservative government boasted about powering past coal, and how you can see pictures of Alok Sharma blowing up a coal-fired power station. So now we don't have enough power stations to generate the electricity. When there's not enough wind, we depend on interconnectors from continental Europe. But when they don't have enough wind, we're really stuck.
And I mean, the other mad thing is, even if we went hell for leather towards the net zero targets, which I think is sort of everything's having to be watered down because it's just not doable, ain't going to make a blind bit of difference if Donald Trump is there drilling like a madman over in America.
And we've got, on the other side of the world, we've got China, which is a massive coal-based economy, building coal-fired power stations like no one else. Our emissions are less than 1% of global emissions. It really doesn't matter what we do, except to us. What it will do is impoverish ourselves and basically break our economy.
Now, I hate to put you on the spot, although it is my job as an interviewer, but I was having conversations with people at the weekend, and there are a number of people who said to me, what's so interesting now is even people like you in the media will talk about carbon emissions and you know, what we need to do as if it's a 100% settled science. Are we sort of singing off that hymn sheet? Are we able to say that actually everyone needs to go back to the drawing board, full stop on this topic?
I think that the key thing is climate change. The question it's framed is often, is climate change happening? If it is, we need to go to net zero. The real question is man-made climate change likely to be catastrophic? If it's not catastrophic, if it's not a huge problem, why are we going about completely restructuring our economy and making everyone poorer? And the evidence to date is actually climate change is not catastrophic. You remember they talk about tipping points, irreversible tipping points, and all that kind of stuff. One of the first ones is the melting of the Greenland ice sheet. And when you look at when this might happen, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, it's multiple millennia, Alex. We're not talking about decades or even centuries. We're talking about multiple millennia. This is really off the scale stuff. It's not going to happen on a human time scale. So we're absolutely fixated on obsessing about something that is catastrophic climate change, which is not a problem. It's not happening.
Well, yeah, it's interesting actually, because when you've got some of the people who've made the big documentaries all about the world's on fire and, you know, by this point this is going to have happened, we've actually passed some of those so-called tipping points already, and guess what? Nothing seems to have really happened. What about solar panels? Because we know this government hell-bent on sticking them everywhere. In parts of Wiltshire, where my other half lives, they want to cover acres and acres and acres and acres of land with solar panels and actually stop farmers being from able to use that land to farm, which I think is absolutely crazy. I mean, are solar panels viable in this country where most days of the week we seem to be caked in cloud? And also, even if they are, can you not stick them on top of buildings? Why do they have to cover loads of fields?
Yeah, I mean, sticking them on top of buildings, I mean, the building is more expensive to put them up there, and also the roof might not be pointing in the right direction. But fundamentally, you're right. There is a problem with environmentalism, which is they're destroying nature to save nature. This is about industrializing the countryside and turning it into essentially an industrial desert of panels. We live far too far north. We have far too much cloud to make solar remotely viable. They kind of work in where you need air conditioning. There might be a case for it. It's very rare in this country you need air conditioning.
That's true, and if only we did. What do you think about all of this, Sam? Heat pumps, solar panels, and this government seems to be hell-bent on still following what essentially was a precedent set by Boris Johnson, especially, who seems to adore net zero targets. Ed Miliband has taken over most of the grid now. We've had to pay for it, and is apparently the sort of sole shareholder in it, which chills me to the bone. Are they going to have to wake up, smell the coffee, and realise that these targets are going to have to be dropped? Or do you think they're going to carry on driving us into oblivion?
Well, I think the world is going to gradually come to the realisation that, look, when you've got your biggest economies simply not on board with it, then actually money would be much better spent on adaptation, building new sea walls, for example, than it would be on massive changes to the entire energy mix. But we should never, ever forget the very, very real victims of this policy, which are those people who were working in industrial jobs, who have now seen those jobs move overseas to countries where they actually pollute even more, but that are simply not viable in the UK, and in large part because industrial energy prices in this country are 4 times what they are in the United States, for example. It's no wonder we can't make anything in this country. No wonder we've not got any steel industry when those kind of price differences are between us and all of the countries we're trying to compete against. Very good point. Well made. Thank you to Sam. Thank you, of course, to Rupert Darwall as well, author of Green Tyranny.